Hello and welcome to the Women Changing the World podcast. I'm your host, Olivia D'Souza, and today I'm speaking with Josephine Lancuba. Hello,
Hello.
how are you? All right. So I have seen you around on the socials and thought you'd be a really interesting person to get to know. So I'm so excited that you are here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
And congratulations on being an author in the Women Changing the World book.
Yay! Got my copy
Ah,
here. It just arrived actually, so I haven't had a chance to read everyone's beautiful chapters, unfortunately. It literally just arrived yesterday. But yeah, it's gorgeous, isn't it? It looks amazing, and I just can't wait to dive in.
It's so amazing. I mean, just listening to everyone's stories, I can't wait to get my copy. So, can you tell us a bit about yourself? Who is
Yeah.
Josephine?
Yeah, so I mean, look, I started my journey, as an artist, a struggling artist, as many are in Australia anyway,
What
and
kind of
and
artist?
around the world.
Can I just
Yeah,
get you to clarify what kind of artist?
yeah. So a performing artist. So I studied full time in theatre, dance, singing, and I went on to, have my go at that sort of a world. I performed on stages every weekend. I worked in bands. I was choreographing shows. I was acting. I had an acting agent. I was doing anything I could, bit parts, commercials, you name it. And I suppose that was really, it was a bit of a struggle streak because I was just trying to make it all work and obviously have enough money to get through life. And so I've been out of home since a young age, since 14, and I talk about
Wow.
that in the chapter. So, just trying to navigate being an artist while trying to support myself as well. So that was always the challenge. I suppose then what happened was I did end up with a career. It wasn't enough to, like in the arts, like performing, it wasn't enough to sustain me. So I always had to work the side hustle, you know, waitressing or, admin jobs, whatever. Like I've literally like I've done it all, and $10 an hour, whatever I had to do just to make it all work. And so I did that for quite a few years until I discovered business. And I actually went and did a course actually through through Centrelink, believe it or not. It was a course called the NICE program, and it was for business management or something like that. Cert 4 in business management. I can't even remember. And it was so many years ago now. And I thought, that's really interesting. I've always thought about running a business. So I ended up doing that course, and it was great. Like it taught me how to think about business in a way that actually, brought back some income, not just from the artist perspective, which was the passion driven side, but also the other side where you can actually make a living from this. So I did that, and that's when I started, running businesses, and a lot of it failed at first, but eventually I came to the point which is now where I run the Musical Makers Club, which is, production focused programming for young people. We do production focused end results. So, kids might perform in The Wizard of Oz or Aladdin or whatever, and it's lots of fun. And I just absolutely love it. And it's a really beautiful, inclusive program. And then we've got Next Move Studios, which is my talent agency. So, representing artists in film, TV, commercial, theatre, all that jazz. And then I suppose that sort of began that progression into mentoring other creatives. So how, sharing that story of being, living below the poverty line through to, having a six-figure a year and growing business. So that's kind of that sort of progression into that. So now I'm moving into that coaching and mentoring space as well.
Wow. That really opened your eyes and your mind to how you could apply what they were teaching in business to your passions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's a really crucial part of business, for me anyway, being a creative, is that I need to love it. If I don't love it, I just lose interest. And you can relate, I'm sure. I'm sure. But, it's that whole, I mean, look, passion doesn't pay the bills. I get that. But it certainly helps to be passionate about what you're doing. I think that's been the thing that's kept me going through all of these years, for sure.
Wow. Is there a story in there that you'd like to share with us today that's in the book?
Yeah, I mean, I talk about in the book, I guess I really start from my childhood. And I do that because it's such an integral part of the why I do what I do. So, I talk about in the book coming from, a home of domestic violence, and I snapshot a couple of those moments. I mean, I talk about, the day my father burnt my sister's CDs, and because it was the devil's music. So there you go. But yeah, all of this crazy stuff. I mean, it was chaotic in my house, and it was just crazy when I think back. And music was always my safe space. That was the place I'd go. It was my dream world. So I would sit in the backyard and I'd like sing along to, musical scores of Cats and other things that my sisters had been playing on the piano. And I was little and I couldn't really read the music, but I could read the words and I remembered the melody from the piano. So I would just follow that along, and I kept wishing I could read the notes on the page. And that's something that I capture in my chapter as well. Just that very beginning moment where I'm like, I really love this. I love music and I love to sing, and it makes me just feel so good. And so that began my whole, journey into music, and there began my real journey into pursuing the arts. So my big why is that it's the feeling it gives you. It's the feeling that's that safe space for young people, and that's what I want to emulate with my Musical Makers Club, what I want to emulate with my agency, this inclusive safe space where people can really have theatre and the performing arts accessible to them, that there's no one way to be successful in the arts. And so that's really what everything I do is all about, just that inner stardom, all of that is so important to me. And I suppose that that's why I mentioned that in the story, because it really is the beginning of everything I do. I wish I had a Musical Makers Club when I was a kid. I had resources, and I wish it was accessible to me, but it wasn't. And so that's sort of part of that journey that I explain in my chapter. And I also use an example of, a young boy that came to us who, he was 14 years old, and he was very much like me, came from like a home of like abuse and neglect. And I suppose remembering that story was pivotal in that whole concept of changing the world, because when I initially saw the opportunity to be a part of this amazing book collective, yeah, I thought, what do I do to change the world? Like, what, like, really, like, who am I? I don't change the world. But then I really sat and thought about it, and then, yeah, I suppose it's those moments, those little moments where you change someone's life, even if it's for the day, or you bring a smile to someone's face, or, that sort of thing. So I guess it's the small actions we take every day that can change the world. And so that's really what my chapter is about. It's not about making a big splash. It's not about, inventing something, or, saving lives per se. It's just about bringing fulfillment and happiness to young people. And I do believe that, the performing arts or any creative outlet really has the power to do that.
I'm sure you do. I mean, for I know we can only understand from our own perspective, right? And for myself, listening to your story, I'm someone who loved singing as a child and was too shy to
Mm.
admit it, and then finally did it as a young adult, and then I feel like my life started at that point, and then even still today, I can't get away from this childhood dream of loving the performing arts.
Mm.
So I'm sure, and I have such gratitude to everyone along the way, like singing teachers and so forth. So the reason I share that is because I'm thinking of you, and I'm thinking of the kids whose lives you touch, or anyone whose lives you touch. You're empowering them, and you're giving them the gift of, that spark inside of them, don't you think? To maybe be
Yeah,
able to actually live that.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so important. And it's not about, see, I think everyone is talented. Everybody has a talent. Whether you're the best singer or not doesn't matter. It could be your charisma, your passion, your whatever it is. Every child that comes to us, and we deal with young adults too, but I don't know, I still call them kids. Every young person that comes to us, yeah, they have that inner spark inside of them. They're there for a reason. They love it. I actually, the other day, I was coming out of one of our studio rehearsals. We're preparing one of our senior casts for the musical Grease. And one of the parents just said, "Oh my gosh, Joe, the kids are," she's got triplets, by the way. Gosh, I don't know how she does it, but she's got triplets. Oh, the kids are just absolutely loving it. When they finished last year's show, they were in tears. They were so upset because they couldn't wait for the next year to start again. And I just thought, that's cool. I mean, not that they were in tears, but it's cool that it meant so much to them. And so the fact that we bring these young people so much joy is just phenomenal. And that's it. That's my path to changing the world, just that one smile at a time, making that impact on a young person's life and creating memories that really do last a lifetime.
And you're creating foundations because
Yeah.
though you're going to watch with pride as they go on and do other musicals and
Mm.
get a part on Home and Away or
Yeah,
or
yeah. I mean, we've got
Hollywood.
kids that go on to do amazing things. I mean, especially through our in-house talent agency. We've got young people that are currently working like on Netflix series, Amazon series, in Telstra campaigns, Optus, you name it. Like we've got some of our kids going on to do great things, but the thing is, not everyone wants to go on to do that. And so that's the point. Yes, we provide the opportunity, but by no means is that a prerequisite for success. If you're on stage and you're part of the ensemble, you're in the group chorus bit, you're not a lead character, but you're loving life up there, then that's it. And that's all you want to do. Like, it doesn't matter if it's recreational or professional. I do believe in providing that opportunity for the professional element, only because I know how to. So I feel like that's part of my obligation, which I find obligation, and I talk about that actually in the book, that obligation to me is not a dirty word. It's actually a beautiful thing. I'm obligated to my community, my family. And so, I live my life in obligation to serve others. And that is okay with me. I think that's actually a beautiful thing to feel obligated, you
It
know?
sounds a bit like another way of showing gratitude, I think. That's what you're
Absolutely. And so, yeah, so yes, we provide those professional opportunities, but by no means do they have to go there to feel great. That actually is a little bit of a lead into what I'm doing now in that coaching space. So there's a couple, I mean, I've moved into the coaching space because I love to mentor and teach. And yes, I love working with young people, but I do feel that I have a little bit more to give to people who are like me in the creative space, who are trying to make a living out of what they love. So I've been recently running some webinars called, Make Your Passion Profitable or Turn Your Creativity into Cash, depending how I feel and which title I feel like using at the time. But anyway, the philosophy is the same, right? It's about how you can, make a great, sustainable, comfortable living out of what you love, which is what I've been able to achieve. And obviously there's still a journey ahead of me. But yeah, but also something a little bit more niche, which I've designed a course specific to dance studio owners or performing arts studio owners who want to create their own in-house talent agency. So actually giving them the power to step up into a new space and have another revenue stream within their business, which is super cool because I think that, we don't consider that as an option, studio owners anyway, don't consider professional representation of the students that they mentor and guide as an option for income. So why not? Like, there's just so many things you can do in the creative space if you're willing to sort of think outside the box and give it a crack.
Well, I mean, I think it's like another way of making dreams come true for people who want to do it and want it to be their career. You've seen them, you
Yes,
know what they can do. You're going
yes,
to be their biggest supporter and say, "Oh my God, this person is so great for this role,"
yes.
and you can make it happen. That's another way of making dreams come true. That's
Yeah, and I think when you're in any sort of creative space, being that dream facilitator through education. So it doesn't matter if I always say it doesn't matter if you're a dancer, a baker, or a candlestick maker, right? If you've got a creative, like if you're crafty, you create. I do think, that education and training aspect is really a great way, not to just increase your personal income, but it's a way to give back. Like it's about facilitating the dreams of others. And so, yes, so everything I do does have like an educational aspect as well. It's just my nature to mentor and teach, I suppose, but that's where I've fallen into my passion pocket, I suppose.
Passion pocket. Love that word. That could be another offering of yours.
There you go.
So, what do you think is the mindset change or the different way you have to perceive the arts to get out of the struggle street that it can be?
Oh, yeah. It's that whole, someone worded it perfectly the other day. It's that whole poor artist mindset or poor artist syndrome, I believe is what I heard. Poor artist syndrome, right? Now, don't get me wrong. Yes, there are challenges. For example, I believe, is it Mia that's leading the way at the moment? Anyway, one of the organizations that represents artists is leading the way in the space of creating a minimum wage of $250 for musicians who perform at government or council events. So, what they're trying to do, these organizations, is say, we need to start setting a minimum wage for artists, just like retail, just like any other industry in Australia. You cannot book an artist and not say that there's a minimum wage. So that's what's starting to happen now. People are starting to advocate for artists to actually have a legal minimum when it comes to live performance and gigs, especially through the government sector. That is a small start, but it's a great start because we need to rally together to say it's not okay to not pay the artist. There needs to be a cultural standard that that's actually frowned upon. And I do think there's some shifts. You'll see it online. I mean, I've heard of horrific stories. I mean, Doritos in the UK apparently years ago paid one of their dancers in Doritos.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so come and, do this music video commercial, whatever, and we're going to pay you a lifetime of Doritos. Like, come on, just give them the money, like it's ridiculous. Even now, I actually, for a major network, nearly 10 years ago, I did little bit parts for segments on their news channel. Like, for example, you might be watching the news and then you'll see a segment on, hey, the bills are not being paid. If you're struggling with your bills, blah, blah, blah. And then you'll see an image of me looking at the bill, wiping my forehead, like little actor bit parts for segments through the news, morning shows, blah, blah. I did that 10 years ago when I was a bit naive and keen for free for a major network. And they're still repurposing my content today. And that's like because I signed an in perpetuity agreement, which means forever and ever, with a major network for no money. This is what I mean. Taking advantage, I would never do that now, for goodness sakes. And I would never advise any of my young artists to do that. I was in my 20s and I was really keen. The point I'm trying to make is that major networks shouldn't be doing that. Major companies shouldn't be doing that, not even small businesses. So I think it's got to be a cultural shift. And I think everybody needs to start respecting the fact that we shouldn't take advantage of people just because they love something. Like, that's wrong, you
It's
know?
still, yeah.
It's wrong. And we
You,
shouldn't be doing that as a society. But artists also shouldn't be accepting anything less than payment. So, and that's really hard because like if they're offered like this opportunity, let's say to perform at, the big football game of the season, and that's like such a fun gig, right? They're going to sing the national anthem in front of everybody. And it's so amazing, but yet they're not going to get paid for it. And if they try to get some money, they're scared that they're going to lose the opportunity to sing at that show. That's not fair, you know? So I just feel like, yeah, the way to overcome it is actually to put some value behind yourself and to back yourself. The more you say no to unpaid or low paid work, the more sort of you're attracting the right people to you. People will pay. You've just got to get the right people, or you've got to educate them. and say, look, this isn't actually industry standard. This is actually an industry standard rate. And I think it would be respectful if we had that conversation. You would be surprised. I think a lot of people would actually pay the artist if we started opening up those conversations.
Yeah. It can be tough, isn't it? Just having to
Yes.
stand up for yourself and not having some
Yes.
rules in place that help that.
Yes,
But
totally. I think rules in place would help for sure, because then you have like something legal to bounce off. You can say, well, actually, this is against the law. You can't do that. But yes, I mean, the start is to back yourself. It is a big mindset shift, but once you make the decision, you just don't go back. But other things are, of course, looking outside the box and maybe, like I said, education, workshops, thinking of other, selling product. So if you're an artist or whatever, selling product, selling video recordings, whatever you can do, there are ways to monetize your craft. You just got to start thinking outside the box and start backing yourself, I suppose.
are you still performing yourself besides
Um,
educating?
Look, to be honest, I still do television presenting. I do a few bits for TVSN, which is a shopping network. So I do TV presenting for them once in a while, a few times a year. I do a few bits. But to be honest, no. I hung up my microphone literally when I was 4 months pregnant with my first baby. And I haven't looked back since. I remember being on stage. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I was out in whoop whoop at God knows where, packing down with our musician, with one of my musician that I was working with. And I was 4 months pregnant. I just thought, I think I'm done. Hey, I'm tired. And it wasn't just pregnancy. I'd been tired for a long time before I even fell pregnant. It was tiring. I was out there for like $150. It was like a 90-minute drive each way. The gig was 3 hours, the preparation and the rehearsal. And I just went, I just don't want to do this anymore. You know, it's
But yeah, I think that could be
hard.
the frustrating thing is that people don't see. They just see you turn up and with a big
Yeah.
smile on your face having fun and not
Yeah.
realize that you had to learn all the words, you had to practice those songs, you had
Plug
to
the
think about.
gear, this and that. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not like, unless you're a rock star, like you're lifting all the speakers, you're doing all the things, the rehearsal time, it was just it started becoming a chore. And that's when I started looking at other options and started getting into like more management roles. So working for companies as like a talent manager and things like that. And then that's when I started moving into my own business. Even then, I was working for a promotional talent agency and I was booking anywhere literally in Christmas. It was insane, like a couple of hundred artists for a weekend of Christmas entertainment work and across the country. It was mental. And they just, yeah, they weren't paying their artists on time. And because I was the booker of the artists within this particular company, who's since gone into administration, whatever, the artist would call me. It wasn't my business. I wasn't in control of accounts. I wasn't the boss. I wasn't. And they'd be like, Joe, like I did that gig 3 months ago. I really need that money. Can I get paid? And I'm like, I'd go to the
Oh,
boss and go, come on, like, can you just, and it was really just like squeaky wheel got the grease. Whoever was complaining got the money first. And I thought, I can't work for this organization. Firstly, it was damaging to my personal reputation because to them, I was the bad guy. But I wasn't, it wasn't my fault. I mean, it was an amazing job. I got to do so many amazing things. I got to manage artists on TV sets. I got to fly to New Zealand and work there. And it was such a great job. But man, they did not treat their artists well.
God.
And I had to leave it.
Oh, so disrespectful, isn't it?
It
So
was horrible.
lacking any value in
Yeah,
shit.
totally. And I think these are the lessons I've learned in my career. And again, this comes back to my why, like being an agent myself now, how I advocate for my artists, how I teach my artists how they should be respected. It's so important. And I just think, yeah, companies like that should really just be ashamed of themselves. But again, this is all a process. This doesn't happen overnight. I think the way we move forward is by advocating for ourselves. Because once we say it's not okay as a collective, then it's not okay. So, and that's why recently I was elected to join the Dance New South Wales Standing Committee. So I made an application there and I was elected. And that was really exciting because it means that I get to make, and Dance New South Wales is like a representative body of the dance industry in New South Wales as a whole, sort of like a union style. They not that per se, but they have that that's how they represent, like they advocate for artists. And so that was really cool because I get to actually be part of that conversation. So, and I don't make final decisions. I'm not on the board, but I get to influence and make suggestions and be a part of those meetings and conversations where decisions are being talked about. And so that's been a really cool thing to take on this year as well. Just, we talk about making change, but then, to actually act on that and say, right, what can I do? So that's sort of part of my journey as well.
Wow.
I mean, I've totally gone off track of the book chapter, but I suppose I can't help it. Like, the women changing the world, everyone.
But that's another way you're changing the world, isn't it? There's so many ways you could go in the next edition.
You can't capture everything in one chapter. That was actually another really interesting thing because, I mean, I'm not a novel writer or a book writer. I've never done that before, but I do write scripts and like as in for shows, scripts. I write scripts, I write lyrics for songs, but I've never actually written like a book. So writing a chapter, when I first found out how many words I had to have, I thought, oh God, how am I going to do this? And then once I started writing, it was hard to stop. I actually had to cull. I actually had to halve it. My chapter has been chopped in half. Made me think, geez, maybe I could write a book.
Yeah, sounds like it.
But it's labor intensive, hey? Like, it's a hard thing to do,
Well, oh my goodness, I could keep talking to you all day, but we have run out of time. So how can people find you?
Okay, well, look, the best place to find me, first of all, Josephine Lancuba on socials. That's Lancuba for anyone who fumbles on that. Sometimes I get called the weirdest things, or Lancucumber, it's Lancuba, like the country, okay? But Josephine Lancuba on socials, you can find me there, like Instagram, Facebook, but you can also check out my website, josephinelancuba.com. You will find that I've just released a couple of months ago now, but I still say just released, and it's called Business, Arts and All That Jazz. So Business, Arts and All That Jazz, and you can find that on any podcast platform like Apple, Spotify, whatever you listen to. And actually, I've got some really cool interviews there with some of the authors from the Women Changing the World, but also from the Mumpreneur Network. So I literally dropped today an interview with Tina Harris. For anyone that knows Tina within the Mumpreneur Network, she's been quite influential. She's from Lala, famous music act for kids. So I just think, there's so many golden nuggets in that podcast because I've got some amazing interviews lined up as well. So anyway, we're up to episode 11, I think, but check it out, guys. I think you'll really enjoy it.
Wow. 11 already after 2 months. I am very impressed.
Yeah, because we did a dump on the first week or two, like 6 or 7 episodes, because so people could binge listen a bit, which really worked because we ended up getting like a few hundred downloads within that first week, which was amazing. So it's just growing and growing and growing, which has been really, really, really cool because I didn't know what to expect with the podcast, to be honest. But anyway. Oh, I can talk forever.
Okay, so we better wrap it up. I could talk to you all day, but yes, we have gone over. So we will make sure that all the links are in the show notes as well as where to get the book as well. Thank you so much.